one factor into a good thing market called monetary awareness.
All right, we are live again for a double dose of the RTD show. And as always, looking forward to connect to share my 2 cents on a variety of subject matter. And this one will be a doozy. And this was inspired by a recent tweet that I put out, or X, or whatever you want to call it, that I put out this morning, as well as put into the community post, as well as the Telegram channel. And it has everything to do with the current movement to tokenize everything. And as of now, we have a very first of its kind here in the U.S., where an entire county is looking to tokenize the real estate within a certain jurisdiction there. And excitement around it is what inspired me to write this, because I'm thinking about the idea of how it's being sold to the people as being beneficial. But then again, worst case scenario, hypothetically speaking, if and when something goes wrong, how will that play out and how will that impact the owners of those properties and the ramifications that can come from that? So that's kind of what I want to touch on a little bit, and I'm going to just jump right into it. And all these things I'm going to mention today can be found at the rtd.news page there. And so let me make sure I'm flowing smoothly here, and then we'll get right into it, because the question is, who actually controls tokenized deeds, and how will that impact the real estate market, as well as every other real world asset that the current power structure would love to have control over? And then it goes into more of the mantra of the World Economic Forum of you'll own nothing and be happy with it, and how whenever I see the World Economic Forum excited about something, it just really raises a lot of red flags on my part, but for some it may not. So let's jump right into it. This is what I'm referring to here. So this is the post that I put out earlier, and it's stemming from an article that I will touch momentarily just to highlight it a little bit and show you the narrative and what's being set up and how we're well underway for the accomplishment of this rebranding of the financial structure. But then again, it's not being controlled by we the people. It's being controlled by the same individuals that put us in this mess that we're currently in. And it says here, just to remember, there could be no great reset without blockchain. And then it says here, when the World Economic Forum is excited about something, it's a trap. And then I just gave them a picture, as you can see here, of the World Economic Forum digital web of interconnectiveness of all the sectors that they are helping to fund, as well as to build out to perfect the web of restructuring or execution of the reset. And everything in this particular graph here is centered around blockchain, and it's interactive. So there's more, it goes a lot more in depth, and I'll do that in a moment, but just wanted to lay the foundation as to what inspired this. And then let's jump right into the news. And as I mentioned, everything can be found here at the rtd.news. Feel free to scroll to below, click it for yourself so you can get a taste as to what I'm talking about, as well as double check everything and make sure it is what it is. But let me make sure I'm flowing here. Then we'll keep it moving. As always, for those who are plugged in, when you first-time viewers, feel free to drop a comment, add, share, hit that thumbs up, check mark wherever you're watching from. But let's just get right into it. So let me zoom in. So here we got the very first thing that caught my attention. New Jersey County to tokenize 240 billion property deeds. 240 billion in property deeds. And this is something that, on the surface, to the more futuristic, tech savvy / entrepreneurial nature that will be a part of this early development, it can be exciting because you're a quote unquote stakeholder in this transition. If you own shares in some of these blockchains, i.e. the particular one they're referring to here is Avalanche, that will be executing this smart contract feature. And then the next thing is, as all this unfolds, the next article or next main points that I want to highlight are the dark side of real estate tokenization, which is exposed, and these 5 possible scenarios of what could happen if things don't work out the way that people hope for them to. So let's just get into the main story. But as you can see here, let me just zoom in here, give it a different look here so you can see what I see. And so I want to read some of this because this is information that you won't get from this particular perspective that I'm going to bring it from. And as always, my goal is to try to encourage, inform, as well as prepare people for the changes that are taking place, whether you like them or not. You don't got to like crypto, but they're making moves anyway. So it says here, blockchain land record management firm Balcony has signed a 5-year deal with officials in New Jersey's Bergen County to tokenize 370,000 property deeds on chain. Okay, what else is going on here? It says here, Balcony said on May 28th, which was yesterday, that it signed a 5-year deal with Bergen County's clerk office to tokenize 370 deeds on the Avalanche blockchain, adding that this was the largest blockchain-based deed tokenization project in U.S. history. Okay, that's a mouthful. First of its kind, groundbreaking, record-setting, 370 billion. See, 370,000 deeds, I'm sorry. And before I move forward, let me just lay some context to this. So, first of its kind, not a surprise whatsoever, because everything to do with this whole blockchain movement has been orchestrated and brought into existence for the purpose of helping to execute the greater agenda, which is the Great Reset at the end of the day. And so regardless of what projects, what coins, what ledgers, what networks are your favorite, it's irrelevant. And I just came to this realization officially in thinking about how to put this together. And I'm thinking like, okay, every single person who owns a ledger of some kind ultimately is helping to fund by being a stakeholder in the greater agenda. And so owning shares of a lot of these tokens here allow the networks and the companies and the individuals to build out the infrastructure that will be used ultimately for our own, can't necessarily say demise, but for our own detriment. And so just something to keep in mind. And so people might say, oh, I'm going to get rich doing it. All well and good. As a capitalist, you have a right to invest into things that you believe will be profitable in the future. But as long as you are aware of the fact that you're not a shareholder, but you're a stakeholder, meaning that you play a major part in helping fund all of these operations. So there's millions of blockchains, maybe 2 or 3 dozen that are legitimate foundational pieces for this transition, i.e. the ISO 20222, XRP, Stellar, all your favorite ones, whatever, that are the key players in a lot of this development. Okay, so I too am a stakeholder. So just now I'm up here frowning upon it, but it is what it is. But ultimately, if you know that you're playing a part of this, then you are willing to accept the responsibility for the actions that might unfold in the future. That's just how it goes. And so this also goes into the other side of the equation where I'm like, okay, I know how all this unfolds and I know how the story ends. So between now and then, I have less of a bad taste in my mouth, if I can use that, knowing that in the end, there'll be winners and there'll be losers. I'll leave it at that. Okay, but real quick here, so I just long little rant there, but let's just get back to the main parts here. And so it says Bergen County in New Jersey is New Jersey's most populous county and is located northwest of Manhattan in New York City across from the Hudson River. Bergen County has nearly 1 million residents and produced around $500 million in annual property tax revenue. And so here you have just a little artwork from Avalanche, the blockchain that is funding or supporting the Balcony tech and the further developments. Okay. So what does that mean? I'm thinking personally, 240 billion, 370,000 properties, first of its kind within this country. It will be the first of many. Every city, every state more than likely will follow this route just because that's how it's going. And if you don't think that's likely or possible, then just look at the current push by Congress now to push through the Digital Asset Market Infrastructure Act, Stablecoin Act, the Bitcoin Reserve Act. So our government is beyond excited. And whenever a government's excited about something, you know that we're heading down a very slippery slope there. But then again, this is just how things are going to go. And so now we have, what if this whole tokenization of deeds on the blockchain goes awry? Because eventually all the paper, digital, all the paper hard copy of these deeds eventually will be phased out slowly but surely and or disposed of, because now we have a more trusted source on chain, verifiable, and all those bells and whistles that they love to tout. And so the moment the paper disappears, because it's good to say we're going to go to more of a paperless, because it's easier, cheaper, faster, quicker to maneuver for governments and as well as or corporations and things of that nature, i.e. the good example is every single person who's watching this or listening to this, you have been offered by any industry, any company you do business with, whether it's banking, any of your lights, electricity, whatever, utilities, whatever, they all offer you paperless billing because it saves them funds and it makes it easier for them to give you what you need without having to have a quote unquote paper trail. It's on you. The burden of proof is on you because it's in your email more than likely. So this is going to happen the same thing in every aspect of life, which is unavoidable. And then also when it comes to cashless society, once all this tokenization stuff is ready, CBDCs, stable coins, whatever is done, then of course paper will be out the door. We know that. You know that. Okay. So just to lay the foundation, once everything goes solely digital, there are very few paper trails, or burden of proof is on you to produce paper. Will they accept it? Will it be valid? Probably not. And so I asked the large language model, ChatGPT, give me some scenarios as to how this unfolds negatively for property owners. And the response that I received was like, wow, okay, I wouldn't have thought of all of these potential outcomes myself. And so that lets me know how these are hypotheticals, but then again, very realistic when you're dealing with fallen slash failed slash failing rather government structures that's deemed for more power than what they have. What am I talking about? Let's just get to it. It says the dark side of real estate. And so when you click on this, if you guys are interested, it'll give you the response that for the most part had me like, whoa, okay, that's deep. I wouldn't have thought of that myself. And so I'll read through these real quick so you can get an idea of the probable, not impossible, but probable scenarios of what could result in property right, aka tokenization of everything real and tangible, being in the hands of those that control these ledgers and networks. Because once again, open, public, private, you didn't write the code. So ultimately, you won't have much to say when and if things go awry. Okay, so let's just jump into this. So here we have on the screen, I took the first three. Let me see if I can get it here. I took the very first, now my screen doesn't work. I took the very first three. Okay. All right. So it is not allowing me to scroll. Unfortunately, I might not be able to give to you. Okay, there we go. So all I did is I took the first three paragraphs of that article I just showed you, put it in here. Then I asked a simple question. I said, what's the worst thing that could happen for property rights and ownership by the public? That's it. 3 paragraphs from that article, and then that question. This is what I got. The tokenization of property deeds on a blockchain like Avalanche brings efficiency, transparency, potential cost reductions, but it also opens the door to serious risk if mismanaged or manipulated. Here's a breakdown of the worst case scenarios that could emerge for property rights and public ownership. Number 1, centralized control through smart contracts. It says, while blockchain is touted as being decentralized, smart contracts and token issuance are still controlled by developers, firms, or government officials. If these are coded or modified without public transparency or checks, property rights could be revoked, frozen, or reassigned with a few lines of code. So take that into consideration. If you are not one of the developers that maintains the network, that i.e. helps control the security, the efficiency, and all the other things when it comes to these smart contracts, because literally all that's happening is a smart contract has been created with the county in New Jersey to allow the file space for 370,000 properties to be put onto this network. And then, of course, as always, and this is the part where people don't really consider, as always, the financial institutions will leverage this technology by creating a new financial product that then they can rehypothecate and earn income off of for themselves. So once again, if you don't hold the deed outright, which majority of us, really don't, then you have no say so in what happens with this digital representation of the ledger that can be used by the institutions that will profit from. This is not about making it your life more convenient. It's about making them more money at the end of the day. Okay, and so just more here. It gets interesting. It gets more interesting. It says this introduces a programmable ownership risk where your home becomes subject to the whims of a centralized smart contract authority. And so literally your property becomes programmable ownership at the possible hypothetical scenario that this stuff plays out. 2, digital censorship and access restrictions. It says if property ownership is tied to blockchain technology or wallet credentials, access could be limited based on your political alignment, credit or social scores, compliance with evolving regulations. So 3 very realistic outcomes. Political alignment, you can be curtailed based upon your affiliations, whatever party you stand for, whatever you said online, because everything is being tracked and traced online. So we all have one big digital profile. That's just how it is. Your credit score, social credit score, i.e. China. Everything's unfolding in China right now. Could possibly play out. And then it says here, in this scenario, owning property becomes conditional on digital permission, similar to how centralized platforms can ban or shadow ban users. So literally, your participation with these particular assets are subject to your obedience to the state. Possible. Number 3, mass confiscation or reset events. It says if a government or central bank, government or central authority needed to respond to a crisis, whether it be a debt collapse, a natural disaster, or political emergency, and all titles tokenized, they could, 1, execute eminent domain digitally. Eminent domain digitally. That right there is something that most people would not even consider. Eminent domain, and you'd even have a paper to prove that you had proof of ownership, because it's all digitally executed on these type of smart contracts here. It says invalidate or overwrite ownership history. So literally, the history of your property can be wiped, removed, or changed to make it look as if you never even really owned it. And then who are you going to argue against if there's no paper trail? And then it says here, initiate a great reset by wiping titles or redistributing assets in the name of equity or climate policy. So even in this language model here, talking about a great reset by wiping titles or redistributing assets in the name of equity or climate policy. Climate. Total surveillance. Monetization of ownership. It says once land records are tokenized, your real estate, mortgage activity, tax payments, liens, improvements can all be tracked in real time. Ownership history may be tied to your digital ID, feeding into centralized databases and in creating perfect surveillance records on property usage. Once again, the term digital ID says this can lead to targeted taxation, restrictions, or even forced sales under ESG or climate-related mandates. So we have the fire issues taking place in various parts of the country and the world. And I'm hearing a lot about what's happening in California, and of course what happened in Hawaii. Those territories that are ravaged by the wildfires, right now, they're not really paying out claims on insurance companies, and they're implementing rebuilding restrictions and or not allowing. And if everything was tokenized, as far as the deeds and all the paper trail to those pieces of property there, it makes it a lot easier to execute stuff, what I'm talking about here. Literally, climate issue. Because of the wildfires, that you are in danger of future events. So we will revoke your right to this land and confiscate and all the stuff that comes with that. Very spooky stuff, wouldn't you say? It doesn't stop there. And this is the last one, but one of the important ones, like all the rest of them. It says here, financialization and Wall Street takeover. Tokenized property can be fractionalized and tracked like stocks. It says Wall Street firms could scoop up millions of micro shares of residential homes, tightening control over communities. So literally, if shareholders become the big institutions that this is all about at the end of the day, they now have more of a say-so on how the county and the city than the state will conduct their affairs, because they're invested in the region, literally, beyond the banks owning your mortgage and owning it that way. You have the mortgage, and then you have other land rights that will be tokenized. It says locals might become permanent renters of their own properties, even if they still live in them. It says communities lose sovereignty as corporate landlords dominate digital land registries. And so, final thought, and this is the end of it. It says, if citizens do not retain physical or legal control outside of code-based systems, this move could mark a permanent shift away from secure private property rights towards programmable, revocable digital ownership governed not by law, but by code and central authority. So there, my friends, are the 5 unlikely but yet probable outcomes of tokenized deeds and all the other things that will come. But then again, it shouldn't be of surprise because this is a part of the plan. Now, back to more of how these things could be and should be of concern to everybody. And so let me just go back here to my main page here and I'll give it to you straight. And so here we have that article that I mentioned, that I referenced early about the World Economic Forum. And so this article came out yesterday. And if I click on it here, it'll come up in a moment and it will shine more light into the enthusiasm that the World Economic Forum has. And when it comes to, as it says here, interoperability in digital finance is now more than a nice to have. So I've been talking about the word interoperability for some time now, and the whole goal is to merge all of these networks, the key networks together so that things become seamless. They can tokenize a variety of things on different ledgers and connect them all into the coffers of a very small few institutions. And of course, governments will allow this, so they'll be able to track and trace and see as well. But real quick here, and then I'll get into this particular image over here. And this image here is where this is the blueprint or the map, is what I would call it, for the blockchain usage and all its many roles that it will play. So real quick, just let me read from here. It says fintech innovations like tokenization are being hindered by a lack of system operability. It says major financial institutions are beginning to push for greater blockchain connectivity to ensure compliance, resilience, and auditability of different assets. Hybrid sandboxes let financial organizations road test and scale such innovation. So hybrid sandboxes, small third-party, second-party type applications that are in the works to help be the bridge between all these different networks. But it says here, the buzzword tokenization, the concept of transforming tangible assets like real estate or art into digital tokens on distributed ledgers, isn't just hype anymore. It's hitting its stride. From the halls of financial institutions to the forward-thinking strategies of central banks and even the everyday dynamics of commercial markets, a powerful current is pulling us towards a new frontier of money. It says, make no mistake, we're not just witnessing an evolution. The global financial system is reaching a major turning point. And this is coming from, as you can see at the very top of here, the World Economic Forum. This is the excitement that they have about tokenization, interoperability, and the connection of all these networks into one. Okay, so you say, who cares, Mike? You should care, because everything that we already don't own, we damn sure won't own. And makes it easier to say you'll own nothing and be happy, because at the bare minimum, if they give you permission to use what you thought was yours, I can imagine a lot of people being happy, because that's better than not having access to anything. And then as I'm scrolling here, I see this. It says, I haven't seen the words fourth industrial revolution in some time, but it says here, what's the World Economic Forum doing? I'll read it here. What's the World Economic Forum doing to accelerate action on the fourth industrial revolution? And I'll let you click that to go take it there. But let's just click this map here, and this will give you everything that you need to see as to what's unfolding and how important it is that they succeed. And so here you see the entire web of every developing ledger and blockchain of some kind and some sort right here. And it's all centered around what's in the middle of that circle, blockchain. And so there are different facets of our lives that are being tokenized on ledgers and ready to be rolled out. And so when this thing here goes 100% green, the Great Reset will be complete, my friends. And so if I hit Control F on the screen, Control F, and type in the word tokenization, as you can see, tokenization is one of the main pillars of this Great Reset. And this is from the World Economic Forum's website. And so watch this, it gets even better. If I click on tokenization, it says tokenization and digital assets is this particular category. If I click on this, look what all highlights. The Internet of Things. We got internet governance, fourth industrial revolution, banking and capital markets, financial and monetary systems, agile governance, innovation, cybersecurity, civic participation, real estate, arts and culture, the digital economy. So under, as you can see over my head here, under this blockchain tokenization digital asset framework that is being built out in real time, it says digital currency, perhaps the best known application of blockchain technology, has a wide variety of potential uses. Bitcoin, for example, is viewed by many as a potential critical store value. The payments company Square said it invested $50 million in cryptocurrency in 2020. And then it goes on to give you more. And one thing I did notice says 40 central banks have or are exploring central bank digital currency issuance, with China's on track to be the first. So this is the World Economic Forum's idea of the Great Reset being fulfilled in our very eyes. And you might say, okay, it don't matter. It does matter, because there are still a portion of people who think that there's people in suits in DC that are actually operating on our best interests. And I'm here to tell you, they're taking orders from somebody, because when they're excited about tokenizing and digital asset clarity, you should be concerned. And so here is something that I'm talking about. U.S. lawmakers, another little headline that came out today. U.S. lawmakers introduce bipartisan regulatory framework for digital assets. It says, backed by lawmakers from both parties. And so, mind you, whenever Democrats and Republicans agree on anything, in the middle of that agreement is reset type activity. It says the bill proposes rules to govern digital assets and define agency roles in enforcement and oversight. Then if you scroll down more, here's a bill. It's called what is it called? The Digital Asset Market Clarity Act of 2025. Mind you, whenever you see these names, to expect the complete opposite, digital asset market clarity. Yeah, okay. And then last here, I'll just give you a little bit of some things that caught my attention here. So as of now, we have, let me see, where was it at? We have two major pieces of legislation on the books. And they are, let me see where they are. We have the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act, and then we have the other one mentioned here is the Stablecoin Act, which is working its way through Congress now. Okay, so it's on this page somewhere, but point in case is, as you guys can see here, tokenization is a part of the greater plan. It will succeed. They will get clarity. This whole idea of tokenizing everything will be accomplished. But then again, long as people know that we have elected officials in DC excited, we got the World Economic Forum excited, we got people at the Bitcoin conference, the Trump family, JD Vance, and all the other people excited. Bitcoin is a part of this. There could be no reset without Bitcoin. And once again, whoever the swamp are, the deep state, the establishment, whoever they are, clearly they're winning in the grand scheme of things. If I'm right, if I'm wrong, let me know in the chat or the comment section. But once again, from where I sit, based upon all the things I just looked at, yeah, I'm not quite sure who's winning here. How does you being tokenized in every aspect of your life help you win and make America great again? I don't know. You tell me. But anyway, taking a quick minute, sharing these thoughts. All the things can be found on RTD.news. Of course, resources and everything that's physical and real can be found in the description as well. But other than that, be blessed, be safe. Shalom.